At the company's celebration party, the handsome intern, without asking, turned to my wife and playfully requested to see my hearing aid. She chuckled as she took it off and handed it to him. He examined it, his expression clearly unimpressed, before casually tossing it onto the floor. I quickly bent down to pick it up, but he accidentally stepped on my hand. The sharp pain in my fingers was nothing compared to the sight of my hearing aid being crushed beneath his shoe. When I put the broken device back on, a wave of anger washed over me, and I wanted to confront him. However, my wife suddenly slapped me across the face. "John," she said, her voice sharp, "this party is to celebrate Mark's new software design. Don't cause a scene here." Seeing the anger in Sarah's eyes and the smug look on Mark's face, I forced a smile. I took off the crushed hearing aid and threw it into the nearby trash can, then turned to walk away. It was the most precious gift Sarah had given me when we got engaged, but now both she and the broken hearing aid felt like things I no longer wanted in my life. In front of everyone, Mark calmly threw the hearing aid further into the trash and smiled. "Enjoy your party," he said. "I'm heading home." As I walked away, the silence returned to my ears, making me feel isolated and detached from the world around me. I saw Sarah looking angry, but I no longer cared. Outside the room, I sent a message to my friend Tom. "I'm quitting my job in the next few days to join your company," I typed. His reply was almost immediate, filled with excitement. "Great! We can develop software together? There's a huge future there." Tom didn't ask many questions, and I was grateful for that. Back in college, Tom and I had been computer science majors together, both passionate about coding and software development. We had even teamed up for competitions several times, winning various awards. After graduation, he had moved to another city to start his own company, while I had stayed behind to marry Sarah and work at her family's tech company. Tom's business had grown rapidly, but my career had stagnated. He often told me my talent was being wasted and asked me to join him, but I had always declined to stay with Sarah. But now, Sarah had changed too much, especially since this new intern had arrived. Staying no longer made sense. Back home, I took out a new hearing aid and put it on. My phone buzzed with a message from Mark. It was a video, and I opened it. The dim lighting showed they were in a karaoke room. Sarah held a microphone and looked at the camera with affection. "This song is for Mark, who's so talented," she said before she started singing. Her voice was captivating, but my heart sank. Even though Sarah often sang off-key, she had clearly practiced this song for a long time, just for me. Since childhood, I had lost most of my hearing, but Sarah would sweetly sing in my ear so I could hear her clearly. Her smile back then was warm and radiant as she said, "John, I learned this song for you. I'll only sing it for you." At that moment, something inside me broke. I was once filled with affection for her, but now she was singing that song for Mark, breaking a promise she had made to me. I closed the video with a bitter smile and looked around the room. It felt cold and lonely. I opened the closet and started packing a suitcase. Sarah didn't come home until nearly 1 in the morning. She looked angry when she saw me calmly watching TV on the couch. "I texted you to come get me. Why didn't you?" she scolded. Usually I would go downstairs to fetch her when she was out late at social events. But this time I didn't feel like rushing to her. I picked up my phone. Our chat was filled with my messages, and she had barely replied. The last message from her was simply, "Be home soon," cold and straightforward. Looking at Sarah, I replied, "I didn't see your message." Without emotion, she marched over and continued scolding me. "John, what are you doing? Mark is younger, you need to cut him some slack. He just accidentally stepped on your hearing aid, and you made such a big deal out of it. Did you even consider my feelings?" I listened quietly, without responding. My gaze fell on her neck, noticing a hickey. Seeing my look, Sarah faltered and clumsily covered it with her collar, but she maintained her harsh tone. "Me slapping you was a lesson. Don't act like this again. Be more understanding toward Mark." I nodded, not wanting to argue. "I get it. I'm tired. I'm going to rest," I said. Then headed to the bedroom. Sarah's face was sour, and she scoffed as I walked away. Lying in bed, I closed my eyes, but my thoughts raced. "Just accidentally stepped on your hearing aid," she had said. But it was the precious gift she had given me when we first got together, and I had always treasured it carefully. Despite its age, it still worked perfectly. Back then, she had happily put the hearing aid on me, and the world had become clear. I had heard her sweet voice say, "John, I like you." It was the best sound I had ever heard. Yet Sarah had easily dismissed it after Mark crushed it. She seemed to forget its significance to me. In the living room, I could hear Sarah laughing sweetly as she sent voice messages. Then, a new notification sound came from her phone, a message from Mark. It was a screenshot of their chat. They were having a lively conversation, ending with her sending a loving goodnight. Mark's message followed shortly after. "John, you and Sarah should rest early. I won't bother you." It felt taunting. I closed my eyes, ignoring it. After finishing her skincare routine, Sarah went to another bedroom. Ever since Mark had joined the company, Sarah had become close to him and had stopped sleeping next to me. My love for Sarah seemed to be fading away slowly. After getting up the next day, I wrote a resignation letter. Then, I went to the best law firm in the city to hire a lawyer to draft a divorce agreement. Only after that did I head to the office to continue with my work. I found Sarah at Mark's desk, their heads close together, discussing something intimately. The funny thing was, seeing them like this now didn't really bother me as much as it used to. Mark noticed me and greeted me. "John, you're late today. You don't look so good. Didn't sleep well last night?" There was a hint of provocation and smugness in his eyes as he leaned closer to Sarah. "He's been with the company long enough that he thinks he doesn't have to follow the rules." At this rate, he won't last here much longer, I thought. Before I could say anything, Sarah frowned and started criticizing me. I gave a faint smile, looked at the two of them, and calmly said, "I'll pay more attention in the future. Thanks for the reminder, boss." Sarah's face turned dark at my reply. I rarely called her boss, but now my tone was polite and distant. Ignoring them, I sat at my workspace and dove into my work. I was wrapping up my last project, and even though I was leaving soon, my sense of responsibility pushed me to finish it. During lunch, Sarah pulled up her car in front of the company, and Mark eagerly jumped into the passenger seat. When I walked by, Mark called out, "John, Sarah and I are going to the Italian restaurant. Join us." Despite his words, it didn't seem like he had any intention of giving up the passenger seat. I shook my head, smiled, and said, "I'm not a fan of Italian food. You guys go ahead." I walked away without looking back. Sarah's voice faintly called out, "His temper's been foul lately. Ignore him. Let's just go eat." I smiled, erasing them from my thoughts. While eating my own lunch, I casually scrolled through my social media and saw a post from Mark. "When the boss knows you smoke, she gives you this branded lighter. Best boss ever? I'll work for her forever." I raised an eyebrow at the picture he posted. There was a fancy lighter on the table, the background was clearly Italian food, and in one corner Sarah's delicate fingers were visible. Back when Sarah and I had started dating, I had a habit of smoking under stress. She would always take the cigarette from my hand, take a puff herself, and end up coughing with tears in her eyes. I would quickly stub it out and pat her back. With teary eyes, she would pout and, half-jokingly, half-annoyed, say, "John, I hate the smell. If I catch you smoking again, I'll smoke it myself and make you worry." With her small fists and adorable demeanor, she looked so cute. I would smile helplessly and quit smoking for her. Once Mark came along, Sarah's attitude towards me started wavering. Sometimes I would find myself taking a puff again, and she would always scold me with disgust, telling me to stop because she hated the smell. Yet now she had given Mark a lighter. I shook my head and put my phone away, a dull feeling growing inside me. After work, I came home to find a suit Sarah had customized for me had been delivered. She loved dressing up both herself and me. Since we got married, all my clothes had been picked out by her. Whenever I put on new clothes, her eyes would light up, and she would twirl around me, praising my fit and calling me a natural clothes hanger, eventually diving into my arms to plant a kiss on my cheek. Sarah always said I looked best in suits, so she would order the latest ones each season and have them sent home. Remembering this stirred something inside me. I tried on the suit, only to find it didn't fit at all. Sarah knew my size well, and after ordering clothes for so long, the store shouldn't have made a mistake. I took the suit off, put it back in its bag, and drove to the store. There, I unexpectedly ran into Sarah and Mark. "Mark, you look great in that suit," Sarah exclaimed. "I've set up an account for you here. Feel free to come by often, it's on me." I glanced over at them. Mark stood straight-backed in the newest suit of the season, while Sarah looked on with a flushed face, both exchanging smiles with a hint of intimacy. "Mr. John, what brings you here?" A store clerk recognized me and shouted, her voice just loud enough that both Sarah and Mark heard. They quickly separated and turned towards me. Sarah's face quickly turned angry as she marched over. "John, what are you doing here? Were you following me? You've got some nerve." I looked at her calmly, then at Mark behind her. I sized him up from height to shoulder measurements, letting out a soft chuckle. I realized my suit was ill-fitting because Sarah had mixed up my measurements with Mark's. "I wasn't following you. The suit you ordered arrived, but it's not my size, so I'm here to return it," I said, swinging the garment bag in front of her. "Here it is. I have other things to do. Won't disturb you two any longer." I turned to leave, a mix of emotions crossing Sarah's face as she glared at me. "John, don't go too far. There's nothing between Mark and me. Don't think so lowly of us," she said. I shrugged with a smile. I didn't think anything of it. No need to get worked up. With that, I turned and left smoothly. I felt a sense of progress. Seeing Sarah and Mark interact no longer hurt as much. Later that evening, Sarah surprisingly came into my room after her shower. She was wearing a thin nightgown, her curves clearly outlined. Her dark curly hair cascaded over her shoulders, and that scent of perfume I loved lingered on her. She gently climbed onto the bed and hugged me from behind. "John, don't get me wrong about these past days. There's really nothing going on with Mark. He's just good at what he does, and I'm valuing good talent. I've been a little distant from you. It's been so long since we—" "John, turn around and hold me," said Sarah, in a soft, coquettish way. I felt a bit shaken inside. Her hands touched me. Not loving Sarah would be a lie. During my long, dark teenage years after losing my hearing, she had been the only light, giving me endless warmth and love. 10 years with her meant so much to me. I no longer wanted to hold back. I turned around and embraced her tightly, kissing her passionately. She received my kisses, which felt like a release. I reached for my hearing aid, wanting to take it off for something more intimate, but Sarah's phone rang at the wrong moment. A bad feeling rose inside me. She picked up the call, and after a brief conversation, she pushed me away and sat up anxiously. "John, Mark seems to have a fever and feels really bad. I'll go check on him." Slipping on her shoes, she hurried out without another glance at me. I listened as the door opened and closed again. Everything went silent. Sitting alone on the bed, I slowly felt her lingering presence fade away. The phone beeped. A message from Mark. "John, I'm not feeling well. Please ask Sarah to see me. Don't be mad, okay? I stared blankly at my phone and let out a silent laugh. Mark had won. Sarah didn't return until the next morning. She apologized to me, but I just nodded calmly, unbothered. I packed up all my luggage, booked a flight to the city where Tom lived for the next day, and finished the final touches on a project at work, then submitted my resignation. I took a cab to the cemetery and sat quietly at my grandmother's grave. With my imminent departure from this city, I felt unexpectedly calm, not a hint of reluctance. Maybe I had been hurt enough that I was numb inside. Leaning against the tombstone, I babbled on to my grandma, watching clouds drift by until night fell, and then headed home. Opening the door, I was greeted by unexpected liveliness. Balloons and decorations filled the space, with flowers and gifts everywhere. A happy birthday banner hung on the wall, leaving me dumbfounded. "John, you're back! Today's my birthday." Mark appeared with a cheeky grin and glanced over at the dining table. Following his gaze, I saw an array of dishes. Sarah said she wanted to show off her cooking skills. "She's such a kind-hearted person. I envy you, though," he said, his glee about Sarah's efforts for him dripping with satisfaction. I forced a smile, uninterested in his antics, and turned towards my room. But something caught my eye in the corner of the room, making me pause. Mark noticed my reaction, laughed unconcernedly in my ear, and went, "Oh, that? While decorating, I accidentally knocked it over. Sarah said it's fine, she'd clean it up later. John, I'm so clumsy, don't mind, okay?" On the floor lay the delicately framed photo of my grandmother, now shattered. Her smiling face in the picture was marred by visible black footprints. His casual words filled me with rage. Unable to hold back, I swung a punch at him. My mind went blank, overcome by fury, as Mark's lips curled into a barely noticeable smirk. He started yelling. My punches rained down on him, each met with a grunt. "John, what are you doing? Stop it!" Sarah rushed out of the kitchen, screaming as she slapped me hard and pushed me away. Helping Mark up, I glared at them, my eyes red. "It's just a photo. No need to overreact. Mark's hurt because of you. Are you just bitter because you're deaf and can't stand healthy people? What's your deal?" Sarah shouted angrily, helping a limping Mark out of the house. My nose tingled. My heart ached sharply. Trembling, I carefully picked up my grandma's broken photo, wiped the dirt off with my sleeve, and placed it in my suitcase. Sarah didn't return that night, and I didn't sleep. Before leaving, I took one last look at the apartment, left the divorce papers on the table, and walked out with my suitcase, resolute that I wouldn't come between Sarah and Mark again. I messaged Sarah, "divorce," then blocked and deleted all contacts for her and Mark. Sleep hit me slowly on the plane, dreamless, thankfully. Upon landing, Tom was already waiting. He took my suitcase, a look of curiosity in his eyes, but he didn't ask any questions, just patted my shoulder. "Back in the day, we were unbeatable together. I'm really glad you're here." I smiled back at him, a bit of anticipation and future prospects warming my heart. Tom settled me in, then took me to get on board at work and to get used to company operations. I joined a project developing new software and poured myself into work. Immersed in code, I rediscovered that familiar, carefree feeling. Ideas flowed easily. After suggesting some improvements, my colleagues looked at me with new respect. "No wonder Mr. Tom wanted so badly to recruit you. You're great," a colleague praised endlessly. I smiled gently, satisfied with my life now. After that project ended, the client was really happy with us. Tom even gave us a big bonus. He took us out for a celebration dinner, and I became the star of the night. No more public humiliation for me. After we left the restaurant, the cool evening breeze hit my face, and I sobered up a bit. Then there was Sarah. "John, turns out you were hiding here. What's up with all this drama?" a furious voice shouted at me. Then Sarah rushed over. It had been a while since I had seen her. She seemed worn out, glaring at me angrily. "Come back with me. You can't just run off whenever you want. You're such a troublemaker." Sarah grabbed me, trying to drag me away, waking me up instantly. I shook off her arm, stood my ground, and just gave her a cold stare. Sarah couldn't believe it. "John, you—" I cut her off, my voice icy. "Let's get a divorce. I'm done. The papers are on the table. You've probably already seen them." Her shock was clear as day. "A divorce?" she stammered. I nodded without a hint of humor. Just then, my ride pulled up. I walked away, leaving Sarah standing there speechless. She followed me into the car, dazed, still not fully grasping what I had said. "John, you—" I took off my hearing aid, finally finding some peace. Sarah sat next to me, dazed, and followed me like a shadow when I got out. As I entered my home, Sarah tagged along, trying to come in with me. I blocked her at the door. "Go sign the divorce papers. We're done." Her face went pale as the realization hit her. "No, I'm not leaving. I'm not divorcing you, John. Let me in, or I'll sit here all night." Back in the day when we were dating, Sarah would pout, and I would give in almost instantly. But now, she looked at me with tear-streaked eyes, and I just felt nothing. "Suit yourself," I said, shutting the door despite the plea in her eyes. The alcoholic buzz hit me again, and my head throbbed as I washed up and passed out. The next morning, as I was going out, I found her curled up in the corner. She had really stayed all night. Hearing the noise, she opened her eyes and quickly came over. "John, I thought all night. It's my fault. I shouldn't have gotten too close to Mark and ignored your feelings." I looked calmly at Sarah, tired and with dark circles under her eyes. "I'll keep my distance in the future. Can you not do this? Come back with me." She sounded desperate, no longer proud. I shook my head. "There's no going back." With that, I left for work. Diving back into a satisfying job at Tom's company was a relief. Despite my talents, at Sarah's company I was always sidelined, especially when a young hotshot like Mark joined. Sarah favored him, and he always tried to outshine me, even stealing credit for my work. Sarah stood by while he humiliated me in public, trampling on my love little by little. Luckily, I had chosen to leave and shake off the gloom. Just as I was deep into some coding, Tom came over, patting my shoulder with a complicated look. "John, Sarah is at the front desk causing a scene, looking for you. Go check it out." I frowned and headed to the front. I thought refusing her at work would make her give up, but I didn't expect her to be waiting at my door when I got home from work. "John, you're back. I went to the grocery store and got a ton of ingredients to make you a special dinner tonight." Sarah greeted me with a beaming smile. I noticed the sweat on her nose and her flushed cheeks, bags of groceries in hand. Her upbeat voice almost made me feel like it was old times when things were good between us. But then I snapped back to reality. Sarah looked up at me with wide eyes. I shook my head. "You don't have to do this," she insisted, holding the door as I tried to close it. "Let me in," she said desperately. I gave in, and she came in, bustling around the kitchen, preparing a meal. For a moment, it was like the old days, but only in the faintest way. Soon, the table was filled with aromatic dishes. Sarah's eyes sparkled as she urged me to try them. She was stubborn, like before when she pursued me. Her unwavering determination eventually broke down my defenses. I had ended up loving her with all my heart for 10 years. "John, we've loved each other for so long. I can't bear to let you go." Seeing me just stare at the food, Sarah's hope faded a bit, and her voice turned solemn. "I won't give up. I'll bring you back," she insisted with a bright smile full of confidence. Then, A ringing interrupted us. Sarah froze as she picked up her phone. It didn't take much for me to know who was on the other end. I laughed at myself, picking up the chopsticks, but then the doorbell rang. I stood up to open the door. Before I could react, I got shoved hard. I lost my balance. Yelling and cursing came at me full force. "John, just go ahead and divorce Sarah already. Don't keep stringing her along. All us guys know what you're up to. You think I don't know you're trying to patch things up?" It was Mark, coming in hot. Sarah gasped, running over to steady me. I pushed her arm away, staring coldly at both of them. "How did you know where I live?" I pressed Mark, staring him down. "Come on. I've had location sharing with Sarah." "I'm not like you," Mark replied with a nasty grin. He gave me a mocking look. "Mark, stop it," Sarah snapped. But it was like denying the obvious. I smiled faintly. Any doubts Sarah had stirred in me vanished instantly. "I won't fight over Sarah. I'm over it. Once she signs the divorce papers, we're done," I said, looking at them both coldly. "Now please leave my house." The air got tense for a second. "Smart move," Mark scoffed. "Quit while you're ahead." He wasn't done talking when a sharp slap interrupted him. He looked at Sarah, stunned. "Why are you butting into my business with John?" Sarah's voice was icy. Mark's eyes filled with frustration and resentment, but I ignored it, ushering them out of my home. Turning around, I dumped the meal Sarah had prepared into the trash. I could hear them arguing faintly outside. Then my phone rang. It was a former colleague. "John, the project we worked on has a bug we can't fix. Is there any way you can look at it? Sarah's not around, and Mark is AWOL. The clients are on our back. I'm really stuck here," he said. I smirked. I knew the project had issues. Mark had taken the credit for my work. The team knew it too, but no one spoke up. Now they expected me to clean up the mess. "Sorry, I don't have time. Find someone else," I answered. I wondered how Sarah would react if she found out Mark hadn't actually done the work. But that wasn't my problem anymore. Not the company's, and not Sarah's. The next morning, Sarah was waiting downstairs for me. "John, I brought you breakfast," she offered eagerly. I took it and threw it straight into the trash in front of her. "Don't bother next time," I told her, adding, "Seems like your company's in trouble." I left Sarah standing there. Her affection had once been intense, but it had faded. I thought we'd grow old together. Turns out she couldn't resist something new. Too many disappointments had burned out our years together. The sky turned gloomy, and soon it started to rain. Sarah stood alone in the rain, stubbornly waiting for me. I looked away. "John, can you bring me an umbrella?" The call came from a strange number, but it was still Sarah. I saw her small figure in the rain and sighed. "Go home. Don't be foolish," was all I said. Sarah remained, hoping I would change my mind, but inside I just felt empty. The rain grew heavier, and when I looked again, she was gone. Later that afternoon, I got an unexpected call. "Mr. John, your wife is in the hospital. Could you come?" I gritted my teeth, grabbed the divorce papers, and headed to the hospital. Sarah had fainted in the rain and had been brought in by a kind stranger. She had a fever, her face flushed on the hospital bed. "John, I knew you'd come," she said weakly when she saw me. Before I could respond, Mark burst into the room. "Sarah, I'm here," he blurted, then turned his fury on me. "You just won't leave Sarah alone, huh?" he yelled, swinging a punch at me. I took the hit, grunting in pain. "Mark, stop!" Sarah shouted urgently. I wiped the blood off my lip, setting down the papers. "Sign it, Sarah, in front of Mark. Let's end this," I told her. I didn't want hatred. My mind was set as I stared at her. Sarah turned pale. She knew I was serious. With shaky hands, she signed her name on the papers. "Congrats, you dumped that trash at last," Mark cheered, but Sarah closed her eyes, tears slipping out. As I left the room, I heard Sarah say, "Mark, you're fired." Drained, I returned home, still clutching the divorce papers. My 10 years with Sarah were finally over. I deleted all our photos from my phone, years of memories gone in an instant. Tom invited me out for drinks. In a haze of alcohol, I ended this chapter of my life. Sarah left the city, and I started my new life too. Tom started setting me up on blind dates all the time. He hoped I would quickly move past the pain. I politely declined his offer, with a smile. Right now, being alone suited me better. One day after work, I parked my car in the basement garage. Just as I got out, someone punched me. "John, what kind of spell did you put on Sarah? She not only fired me, she also canceled all the cards she gave me. What money does a recent grad like me have? Now I'm drowning in debt, and the company is holding me responsible. You ruined my promising future." Mark's furious voice echoed in my ears. I held back the pain and clenched my fist. We had fought when I first met Sarah. I was often bullied because I couldn't hear. I had to fight to protect myself. Sarah used to silently apply ointment to my injuries. Back then, it was about self-defense. Now, it was about defending Sarah, even though we were no longer together. Thinking of that, my anger toward Mark surged again, and I hit harder until someone pulled us apart. I spat out a mouthful of blood and smirked at Mark. We were taken to the police station. After they took our statements and lectured us, we were finally free to go. Sarah rushed over from another city. She wore an exhausted look and silently glanced at me. We had once been close, but now we were just strangers drifting apart. "Mark, don't bother me again," I said, glaring at him. Fear finally flickered on his face. "John, you—" Sarah started to speak hesitantly. "Let's keep it formal and stick to full names," I replied. I looked at Sarah and felt completely at peace. From now on, we had no ties. After saying that, I felt a weight lift off me. I turned and walked away without a trace of reluctance. The road ahead was long, but Sarah would no longer be by my side. Sarah's epilogue. The first time I saw John was when I was skipping class and hiding in the sports equipment room. He was sitting in a dim corner, his head lowered, with his hair covering his brow. He startled me. I approached and patted his shoulder. When he looked up at me, my breath caught. His eyes were the most beautiful I had ever seen. I asked him, "What's your name?" He saw my lips move, pointed at his ear, and waved his hand. Turns out he couldn't hear. I fumbled around for some paper and a pen and handed them to him. He smiled, despite the bruises on his face, which did nothing to lessen his good looks. He scribbled down John in flowing script. So he was the guy who was always at the top of the grade ranking. I began pursuing him and learned about his poor family background. He lived with his grandma, had lost most of his hearing from an illness, and wasn't much of a talker. I also found out that he worked hard and was a perpetual top student. John was cold to people because he was bullied a lot, and I was no exception. Getting close to him was incredibly tough, but I didn't give up. I made him breakfast, sang to him, and gradually inched closer. He started smiling at me more the day we got together. I gave him a hearing aid and confessed, "John, I like you." I saw tears glistening in his eyes and playfully ruffled his hair. He suddenly hugged me tightly, burying his head in my neck, hot tears streaming down. I thought, he's falling for me. After graduation, he joined my family's company and stayed in town for me. We naturally fell in love and got married. During that time, his grandma passed away, and I was by his side. John held me close, his voice low and choked, saying, "You are the person I love most in this world." I hugged him back just as tightly. Later, while living a mundane life with John, I started feeling bored and empty. Then Mark came along. He was young, energetic, and charming, always making me happy. Plus, he was really competent at work. I grew closer to Mark and began pushing John away. John became more silent, sometimes giving me looks I didn't recognize, but after 10 years, I was sure he would never leave. At a celebration party, I slapped John for Mark. He looked at me quietly, then took off his hearing aid and threw it in the trash. It was a long time before I realized that was the first hearing aid I had given him. He cherished it more than his own life. It was then he decided to leave, but I kept deceiving myself. I thought his love for me could withstand anything. I recklessly suppressed him, favored Mark like it was some kind of competition. The more distant John became, the more angry I got. Finally, he left. I searched for him for a long, long time, but when we met again, his eyes held none of the love they once did. I tried a lot, sent him gifts, cooked special meals, even ended up in the hospital. But in the hospital, John's gaze was firm, as cold as when I first knew him. I was terrified and realized too late he was really leaving. John held my true feelings in high regard, but I made a fatal mistake. There was no going back. John stood by me for 10 years, and now wouldn't even glance my way. Those memories vanished into thin air. I suppose in the years without John I'll always feel alone.